Lightweights Justin Rousell and Daryl Hales both tipped the scales during today's weigh-in at 61.05 kilograms, just under the 61.23 kilo mark. In the Australian light strawweight division, defending title holder Lyle Appo from Brisbane came in almost 2 kilograms below the 47 kilo limit. His opponent and fellow Queenslander Ricky Budgeon just scraped in. There were anxious moments for the junior bantamweight contenders, both having to spend time in the sauna to taper down. Colin Kidd Nelson did, but Lucas Matthews had to lose everything before getting the green light. Russian-born Kostya Tszyu will box an exhibition bout with Steve Johnston, who's been sparring with Pedro Sanchez, Tszyu's opponent in the World Junior Welterweight Eliminator in Melbourne in August. It's this fight Newcastle lost because of not having a facility big enough to finance the bout.
Just this fight in Melbourne ends at $600,000. Now, that's a hell of a lot of money to come by, and you've got to get it basically through ticket sales. It would have meant, had we tried to do the fight here, we would have been charging something like $150 ringside down to about $60. And I don't think Newcastle really could have afforded those prices.
However, Morty says if Kostya wins, his challenge fight for the World Championship could be held outdoors in Newcastle, possibly Marathon Stadium. Catherine Lamond, NBN News. When word spread Hamilton was to lose one of its tallest icons, hundreds turned out to see the event. After weeks of delay, weather conditions were ideal, and with the help of several kilograms of high-powered explosives, the scene was set.
But the big moment turned into an embarrassing disappointment when one of the 44-year-old silos split from the other three.
That set down about 10 foot deeper 2 seconds after the start of falling and stopped the other tree to continuing the fall. That's what happened.
Another attempt was to take place today but was aborted when investigations took longer than expected. WorkCover says there's no serious safety problem and has helped the demolisher to come up with a new plan.
We have to get rid of the first silos that is separate from the other tree. We have to get rid of that one at the first, and then so we can come in behind it and do the implant on the other tree later on.
If all goes according to plan, tomorrow will see an end to the troublesome silo. But it will be another few days before the rest of Hamilton's Leaning Tower finally comes tumbling down. Melinda Smith, NBN News. It's Harry M. Miller's latest offering, and the flamboyant producer was on hand to announce the long-awaited arrival of the cast. And making the official welcome on behalf of the city was Lord Mayor John McNaughton. The $4 million production has just played to sell-out crowds in New Zealand, the Australian cast featuring Kiwi Daryl Lovegrove in the lead role of Jesus.
A lot of people have different ideas of who Jesus was, and I think it's a show where whether you're a believer or a non-believer, the role will certainly make you think about who Christ was and what he went through in his last week of his life.
John Stevens and Denny Hines joined seasoned performer Noel Ferrier as the evil King Herod.
Didn't really care for Jesus Christ at all. No, he took an instant dislike to him, and he was inclined to murder people at the drop of a hat.
The production opens on August 20 and the cast was wasting no time in showing a little of what's to come.
Bushfire brigades were fighting 3 blazes in the Taree area today, one at Middle Brother Mountain, another at Boban, and this one about 12 kilometres south of Taree. Backburning was done to try to bring it under control.
We believe the fire started from burning off operations conducted by landholders in the area.
Rod Cox says there have been more than 20 bushfires in the Taree area since Saturday.
It's just burning off by landholders, not taking sufficient care, making sure that there's sufficient clearing around their fires.
Fire brigade officers were concerned that the blaze could spread to nearby houses, so they started backburning around the properties. Max Devereaux watched as brigades put a fire break between his house and the blaze burning lower in the valley.
They're doing a good job of backburning and getting rid of it, and I'm not too concerned.
Fire Control Officer Rod Cox says the dry conditions and strong winds have made it dangerous to light fires. He has this warning.
And unless they absolutely have to, don't burn unless it's for health or safety reasons.
Late this afternoon, all 3 fires had been brought under control. Jane Anderson, NBN News. Valerie Matheson's disappearance in June sparked a massive search of the area surrounding her cattle property at Manning Point. Police, emergency services and volunteers searched creeks and bushland for several days.
A major search was conducted of the area, her property, an area surrounding her property to see with an effort to locate her, but it was negative.
Mrs Matheson was a fit, independent woman. She lived alone on the property but was often visited by friends and family. Her disappearance remained a mystery until last Friday night. Her badly decomposed body was found in bushland near the Manning Point Caravan Park. It's not known why she would have been in that area, which is about 2 kilometres from her home. Police say a post-mortem has revealed no evidence of foul play.
Because of the advanced state of the decomposition, they were unable to come up with a cause of death.
A report is being prepared for the coroner. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
These were the distressing scenes after a diesel spill at Lake Liddell near Singleton in 1990. Swans and other wild birds had to be hand-washed to rid them of the potentially fatal chemicals. Fortunately, most of the birds were saved, but some rare species were lost. Delays in life-saving products such as simple detergents to clean the birds contributed to the losses.
Nobody was prepared for that, and it was quite a difficult task actually.
But a presentation at the Shortland Wetland Centre should avoid further delays and keep wildlife deaths to a minimum in future chemical spills. The Native Animal Trust Fund received 48 litres of detergents, which will be used in emergencies, saving time and lives.
Well, it'll be used if there's a disaster such as an oil spill, and if we happen to get any oil birds or any oil mammals in, we'll be cleaning them with this detergent.
Which means birds like Charlie Cooker, the kookaburra, will now be safer. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. These Year 10 Glendale Technology High students are trying to do what engineers have attempted for years, design a car that runs on the smell of an oily rag. The school has entered 2 vehicles in the Australian Mileage Marathon at Emeroo Park. This car is a veteran of 2 marathons, and the 3-wheeler finished second in the 2-seater division last year. But they'll face plenty of competition, with last year's Open winner averaging more than 600 kilometres a litre. But Glendale has a proven track record, with numerous placings in its 5-year involvement with the event. But for teachers and students, it's not just a matter of being the most fuel-efficient car on the day, it's also about learning basic mechanics while having a good time.
Well, they enjoy it. It's a practical hand-on type of exercise, so that they enjoy that type of thing rather than sitting down and doing the theory side of it.
Oh, it's pretty fun. You get to see all different cars and learn about them more.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
"226 Central Coast women have been diagnosed with cervical cancer in the past 3 years. According to the Health Service, the number of victims in the area has increased 17% over the past decade. That's despite a drop in incidence in the rest of the state.
For cervical cancer incidence and mortality, we're just above the state average.
Dr Lyndon Bauer says death from the cancer occurs most among women aged between 50 and 70. Postmenopausal women are reluctant to have regular pap smears.
The causes are less important than the fact that we know we can prevent cervical cancer simply by screening. We can pick up the nasty cells long before they ever develop into a cancer.
He says general practitioners are asked to take action. A campaign is underway in Wyoming to encourage early detection. Tracy Walsh, NBN News.
Publicans on the mid-north coast should be more responsible about selling alcohol to people who are intoxicated. That's the view of drug and alcohol counsellor Michael Nolan.
70% of drinking takes place outside of licensed premises, but the 30% that does take place within licensed premises accounts for
the majority of problems of street offences and assaults.
He says this region has a higher incidence of alcohol-related deaths and injuries than most of the state. Recent changes to the Liquor Act actually make it an offence to serve people alcohol when they've had too much to drink. To do so carries a fine of up to $2,000. Warren Williams with the Hotels Association says the new laws are welcomed by people running licensed premises.
It's not simply a matter of saying, well, I don't feel like serving a drunk. It's a matter of being able to say quite clearly, I'm not allowed to serve a drunk.
But he does see some problems with the interpretation of the new legislation, particularly regarding the definition of drunk. Payday and pension day, but the money wasn't in the bank long. Bargain hunters swarmed around shops in the centre of town, making it difficult just to walk down the street. Cash registers around town had been ringing since trading started at 7 this morning.
Really busy. Yeah, we've done a day's trading already and it's only, 9:30.
Chamber of Commerce President James Patton says the annual Crazy Day was a success.
A lot of people have got very good deals. From the retailer's point of view, I think they've certainly increased their cash flow. They've been able to move stock that perhaps they wouldn't move in a normal trading day.
Although he admits there is a downside. Trading is often slow in the week before the sale. Also, not every shop owner wants to take part. Taree will hold its 10th annual Crazy Day sale next year.
The Professor of Microbiology at the University of Newcastle says the numbers of flu sufferers are rapidly growing.
All the indications are that we're shaping up to have an epidemic. Just how severe that will be is difficult at this stage to estimate.
Professor Barry fears the situation is similar to an outbreak in America earlier this year. He says he's sending tests to the Atlanta Centres of Disease Control for comparison.
You don't really have runny noses or sore eyes or need to use a handkerchief very much. The characteristic symptoms of influenza are severe headache, muscular aches and pains, and a feeling of discomfort and nausea.
It may have serious consequences. In severe cases, influenza A leads to secondary illnesses, occasionally resulting in death. While the jury is still out on how effective flu vaccines are, Professor Barry says they may be of some help to babies and the elderly. Tracy Walsh, NBN News.
Blindness and cycling appear to be mutually exclusive, but when you have a friend like Kevin Boylan, anything is possible. Kevin's eyes watch for both him and Toddy Kerry as they try to conquer the hills of northern New South Wales on the way to Brisbane.
A tandem is not, it's a far different ball game than an ordinary bike. You have a hell of a lot of weight up there and it takes a lot to stop it.
Complete confidence in him, and when you're on a tandem you need to have confidence in your pilot, otherwise it's not worth it. The pleasure is not there.
More than 200 cyclists have tackled the trip after raising more than $500,000 for Ireland's Blind Society. But the week-long journey doesn't just break down the barriers between the blind and sighted, it also helps to diffuse traditional tension between Ireland's north and south, with the camaraderie of the riders extending beyond the road trips.
We have a few beers to wind down, and at night then we usually have dinner and a big party. Sometimes the parties go on till 3 and 4 in the morning, It's been known that we've gone to bed at 6 in the morning and got up at 7 to start the cycle,
The state government says it's seeking a commercial focus, making the Port of Newcastle a more profitable venture.
The port will be corporatised under the name of Hunter Port Corporation.
50 million tonnes of product goes through the port each year. Newcastle by far the busiest port in the country. Under its new corporatised state, it will be controlled and managed in Newcastle without the leash of the bureaucracy in Sydney.
The competitive forces that will be available to us to compete with other ports in New South Wales and interstate will be clearly unfettered by anything other than our own actions.
But member for Newcastle Bryce Gaudry says he fears increased efficiencies just mean greater profits for the owner, the state government. The Chamber of Manufacturers also wary, releasing a statement that savings must be passed on to exporters, not just translate into bigger dividends for the government. The corporatisation legislation is yet to go before Parliament. George Souris expecting it to come into effect early next year. The Minister says there will be no threats to jobs. Under an enterprise agreement, workers' employment is guaranteed till December next year. Beyond that, he believes there may even be extra positions created.
I would say that the projected growth of the port and its new commercial orientation should see growth rather than reduction.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The removalists loaded the furniture from the elite restaurant this morning. The business has been a landmark in the town, first opened in 1912. It's the latest victim of a deteriorating customer base on Victoria Street's eastern side. A tobacco shop and bakery closed recently. Popeye's Pies will be open for business for the last time tomorrow. Manager John DeVissa says rent on the property has gone up nearly 40% in just over 3 years. But at the root of the problem is a council decision to remove traffic lights from the middle of the street.
Pedestrian crossing has been moved. This makes it very difficult for the people that rely on passing trade, such as the restaurants.
Another business won't be renewing its lease after operating in the street less than 1 year. Over the past few months, profit losses have been dramatic. More and more empty shop fronts are appearing here on Victoria Street, businesses forced to get out while they still can. Some pedestrians are game enough to tackle the traffic, even though there's no longer a crossing.
We've already had people hit in the street and there's still nothing been done.
Tracy Walsh, NBN News. Owen Bailey, Gary Hodges, Gary Reinbout and Scott Thorogood will be spending a lot of time doing this over the next few months. They're training for the Australian Skydiving Championships, and practising aerial manoeuvres on the ground is vital. They'll take off for about 400 or 500 jumps before December to try out hours of groundwork, a minute at a time, in the air. Back on the ground, the team heads for coach Kirk Werner.
Make sure that you're being very passive.
At 27, the former US skydiving champion has made almost 7,000 jumps and will spend about 6 weeks this year training the team.
Well, basically what we do is we work with the air-to-air video man that follows them out and films them, and we get the video down and I debrief the video. But before that I set them up, I tell them what to do, I choreograph the skydive and basically go through all their compulsory stuff that they have to do for the International Parachuting Commission.
Between them they have 25 years experience, but practice is all important.
The most difficulty is the amount of practice you can do, which is only 1 minute at a time in the air, so you don't get much time to physically actually practice it, and it's very expensive as well.
So Kirk's quick tip for skydiving success?
Relaxing is the key.
How do you go about relaxing when you're jumping from 10,000 feet?
Well, basically by making jumps, having experience, and then also by training yourself.
Terry Pastamoglu was back at work at Jerry Wumbles this morning, hours after achieving a career highlight, which included this year's Players Player and Best and Fairest awards. The former Australian schoolboy outpolled West halfback Tony Price for the Best and Fairest award, the front rower at a loss to explain his outstanding form.
It's not much training, I think. It's just I've just been prepared to sort of take the ball up and do the hard work for the rest of the side, and they sort of follow, and when a side follows, you can't go wrong.
A former junior with West in Sydney, Pastamoglu has played a crucial role in the Scorpions' qualification for the grand final. After 3 years with the Knights and 2 with Central, he signed with Toronto last year. His eagerness to play alongside Mal Graham, a major influence.
Mal Graham, I thought, captain coach, he's a bloke who could get amongst it all and help us out, which he does, he has done all year and last year, and it'd be great to win the grand final with him.
Having had such an influence over Pastamoglu, it was fitting that Graham was named Coach of the Year. His efforts both on and off the field improving with age.
He's outstanding. He's tickled pink, and he's a true veteran and a true champion.
Meantime, Cessnock's Trevor Crowe was named Representative Player of the Year, while Waratah Mayfield's Craig Foggo was Rookie of the Year. Competition resumed this morning after a coaching clinic yesterday. The nation's better juniors using the resources of Newcastle's Jane Gordon and Bob Finance to enhance their skills. Queensland was once again among the goals, beating the Northern Territory 2-0. The Queensland girls also continued their good form with a 3-0 victory, while their New South Wales counterparts, including the Hunters' Rosalind Birch, overpowered the Northern Territory 2-0. Ashley Deveridge from Adamstown and Gloucester's Bradley Sampson were part of the New South Wales boys' 3-0 win over the Northern Territory. The round-robin series continues tomorrow. Organisers confident of finding future elite players, with the tournament playing a role in the development of several internationals such as Shelley Andrews and Alison Annan.
It's only a matter of some 6-7 years ago that she was at a carnival such as this. They do come through, and certainly we're hoping that they will continue to come through in perhaps in increasing numbers.
The majority of Tomago Aluminium 700 electricians and iron and metal workers voted to stay out indefinitely until the company makes a wage rise offer they consider to be worthwhile. Plus, the around-the-clock picket line will be maintained.
The resolve is there, is getting stronger and stronger as it goes on. Now, these people are of the opinion, and as you heard, we've been out for 6 days and we're not going back with nothing.
The workers want a 10% pay increase, 2 of which they've already received, but the company will only go to 5%. The difference between the 2 requests equals around $10 a week. The company says the workers' demands are over the top.
If you look at the period since the last national wage case, which was mid-91, and that happens to coincide with the period of the expansion of Tomago, they've had increases of 9.3% compared to the average worker getting only 5.9%.
Mr Goldstiver held talks with union officials this afternoon for a briefing on the mass meeting. Both sides believe the issue may end up in the Industrial Commission. With both sides determined to stand their ground, the situation is at an impasse. With workers striking indefinitely, the union has put plans in place to ensure its members receive some form of financial assistance.
We will now have to consider taking the bucket around to other industries in regard to this, because it is now indefinite, and see what support we can rally out of other unions around Newcastle and even from further afield.
Barry Goldstiver says the 300 staff members currently operating the plant are meeting target production levels. However, production may have to be cut back as the strike progresses. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.